Hello and welcome to Strange Stories. It's great to have you here. We are all about sharing stories of near-death experiences from around the world in the hopes of bringing some light and inspiration to your day. Our daily videos offer a glimpse into what lies beyond this life, and we believe that they can help us all appreciate the gift of life a little bit more. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest videos. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to grow. And to our returning viewers, welcome back. We're thrilled to have you with us again. So go ahead, grab a cozy blanket, get comfy, and join us for today's incredible near-death experience story.
Hi, my name is Stephen Nowak. I've had a near-death experience. I'd like to begin with my personal story. I was 4 years old, and I was about to go to the mall. My parents and brother were across the street, and I was in a neighbor's driveway. I was riding a big wheel, which is a low-slung plastic tricycle. So from across the street, my brother said, "Hey, we're going to the mall," which was basically our Disneyland at the time. So I shot down the driveway between two parked cars, and another car was approaching. So as I emerged from between the two parked cars, the other car collided with me, and I was pinned beneath the car. My big wheel was stuck underneath the back tire, and I was pinned beneath it, preventing me from being run over. What I remember from that was some of the life-changing experiences I had. So the first thing I remember is everything going black, almost like fading into a black screen. And then I remember it opening again, and I saw myself, my eyes rolling in the back of my head. Then it goes black again, comes back, but I'm sitting with someone, leaning on them, leaning to the side, and I can feel someone because I'm pressed against them. I believe this is a person. So I open my eyes, and my head is down, looking down at the ground at the time. And I see someone's hair when I open my eyes. It's almost touching down. It's long, silvery white, and I notice the bottom of their robe as well. So I turn to face the being, and their face is completely white. And as I look at them, I'm being drawn in, looking at their face, and being drawn into their face. And we had a brief conversation. I inquired as to what had occurred, and I vividly recall not understanding why we weren't moving our lips, but we were speaking without moving, speaking without talking. And as I'm drawn into this face of this light being, I begin to see another world, and I have an instant knowing that there was peace in this world. There was no animosity. There was no hostility. In this other world, there was no pain, and I really wanted to go there. And I wasn't sure what it was at the time, but what I'd call it now would be heaven to me. But it was an instant recognition, and that's when I realized I wasn't in my body anymore. There's something unusual about this. So the being basically told me that it wasn't my time, but they'd come back. And I wasn't sure why at the time, or everything we'd discussed, because we did discuss more, but I couldn't find it in my memories. So Stephen, after that little talk, they tell me to put my head down. Everything is going to be fine. I do. A few days later, I wake up with toys. So fast forward to the age of 33. I'm in the driver's seat of my car. I was pretty daring after my experience because I knew what had happened and could feel it, but I couldn't access the memories. So I was driving my car very fast for a while. Coming around a corner, I was doing about 70 miles per hour. The car then begins to skid out, collides with a telephone pole, returns, and flips 5 times before stopping. And I lost consciousness during that time. And the next thing I know, I'm being escorted into an operating room for surgery. It was probably on my arm at the time to repair something that had happened there. And I became very anxious and wanted to flee. And I was about to get up and leave when this energy of calm and peace and just security came over me. And this knowing came over me, and it went all the way down from my head to my feet. And I knew I'd be fine right away. I sat down again. I recognized the voice of the same being that spoke to me when I was 4 years old. And we had spoken, which was difficult to recall 4 years later. I didn't quite remember it, but when I heard it again, I instantly recognized it. It said the same thing. "Stephen, lower your head. Everything is going to be fine." And when this being spoke, something inside my head just broke. And all of this information about quantum physics, energy, and what we discussed during that 4-year-old NDE, that's when things started to open up, and I could access it now that I had enough knowledge to kind of process it, because at 4, I wouldn't have been able to process or even know what this stuff was. The being shows me a field which resembled a blueprint, and I was told it was the creation blueprint, and we were in the quantum field. And they started telling me about how all living things have a blueprint in this field that they can access for physical and emotional healing. This was our original blueprint as love that brought us into the world, similar to a computer file. So the next thing I know, I'm in the center of what appears to be a wagon wheel or a medicine wheel, and I'm pure love in the center. And they began teaching me about how we send out energy in order to experience reality. So they showed me the extensions from my heart out to the rim of this wheel, and then it returns. And it was cycling through my consciousness in order for me to experience reality. And it was almost like a screen all the way around me on the outer wheel. There were imprints and memories of things I'd done in my life up to that point. And they told me that we can recall these by spending pieces of our soul. We can bring these back to heal, to become more whole, and to get closer to how we came into the world in the first place, which I later came to call ascension or soul retrieval. So this being is explaining the nervous system to me, how our waking consciousness is an operating system, and our subconscious is the hard drive that stores all the programs, such as putting my car keys down when I get home, knowing how to ride a bike, and so on. And unfortunately, trauma programs in which we are triggered when we are in certain situations and feel similar to an old experience. So that was significant and critical, and I discovered the blueprint key to healing because I later began to implement these things. So they're showing me everything. They're teaching me about quantum physics, quantum entanglement, and how we can send out our energy and affect the energy of others no matter how far apart we are. I did not attend college for any of these reasons, so it really freaked out the people around me. And as I'm getting out of it, I returned to work. At the time, I worked as a store manager for GameStop. I had an elderly woman who had fallen outside my store and landed on the cement. She was in a lot of discomfort, and this was the first time I realized I could heal or bring people back into their own blueprint using quantum physics, quantum entanglement, and photons. She falls and is in a lot of pain, and I put my hand on her back, and she turns and looks at me and she says, "I'm all warm and I have no pain." And we were only there for a few minutes. People arrived to pick her up. When I got back to work, I was like, that was really strange. And I mean, I was thinking about it. And I began to feel an energy in my center comparable to being a kid on Christmas Eve who can't sleep times 1,000. And this energy began to guide me to different churches, to try to talk to people, to find answers and so on. And I realized throughout that I was looking for God outside of myself rather than within myself. Needless to say, I didn't find God in church. And then the psychic experience began. As a result, I began to notice silhouettes all around me. They were walking back and forth, some lighter than others. Then they started talking to each other, and I couldn't stop them. I couldn't stop them from speaking in my head. And whenever they called, I could feel pressure along the side of my head. And I was terrified at first. Okay, because I'd never had to deal with anything like that before. I hadn't slept in like days. Then I realized they were me being broadcast out into this unified field. And the unified field is basically created by all living beings. And it's a field in which we're all connected without distinction because we're all connected. Because we're separated and everything here is made of atoms that vibrate at different frequencies. In reality, there was no separation in this field. We were all alike. So I deduced that all of these images were of me being broadcast into the screen. And some of them weren't very nice to me as they spoke to me because I wasn't very nice to myself growing up. And they started saying a lot of the same things I did. Very self-defeating, self-depreciating things until I decided enough was enough. And I had to shift my energy in order to let go of these personality traits that existed within my consciousness. Basically, I had to start introducing different charges between myself and the quantum field that they were created in. That's when the game changed, when I took responsibility for what was inside of me and began reconnecting with my inner child through nature and other exercises. My nervous system had gotten so tight, I had to reopen it. And this is significant because we truly trade our identity as energy because we're born as energy, the energy of love. We exchange our identity for approval from others. So it was critical for me to recoup all of the energy I had expended in the field. And then people started coming to me for various healing purposes, such as the removal of dark entities, because I'd figured out the puzzle. And sitting with that light being, I later discovered it was an angel, or what I came to call an Elohim, who taught me about our creation, as well as how sacred everything is here and what a sacred place this is to have this experience. And this being also taught me that every living being is a part of God, is a part of this source, and how we treat them mirrors how we treat ourselves.